Story 1. In a high school golf tournament, I had my best round ever. Usually, we played in a three-person group, but for this tournament, the third person couldn't make it, so it was just me and another player. I was around 2 under par through 17 holes and then shot a 5 over par on the 18th hole. I was devastated. The other player said, "I'll give you a par if you give me a par." I accepted. I ended up winning the tournament because of this. My picture was featured on the front page of our local paper. My parents have my first place medal framed along with the newspaper clipping hanging in our living room, and during a school pep rally, they called me up to give a speech. It's been over 15 years, and whenever I go home, I see the medal and feel a sense of nostalgia. Story 2. A friend of mine was a truck driver in a two-man crew. His partner bragged to him about his wife's sexual prowess in great detail on a daily basis. The newlywed friend decided he needed to investigate, resulting in the destruction of 2 families, several friendships, a softball team, and the company. Story 3. I dated a girl for 4 years. We lived together, discussed marriage, and had a shared credit card and bank account. I helped her lease a nice Chevrolet. All seemed perfect. I came home early from a business trip in Grand Rapids, Michigan, because there was an outbreak of COVID at the conference, so it was canceled. After a 3-hour drive, I went upstairs to my bedroom to sleep, only to find the love of my life in bed with my best friend since first grade. This was someone I had traded Pokemon cards with, had sleepovers with, and played basketball in my driveway. I was absolutely devastated. Being betrayed by the 2 most important people in my adult life shattered me. I'm not proud of what happened next, but I pulled Carlos off my fiancé and beat him within an inch of his life. The worst part was that he didn't resist or fight back. I could feel the guilt and shame radiating from him. He left my house barely dressed, and I told my fiancée to get dressed and find a hotel for a couple of nights, with literal tears streaming down my face. She left, and within the week, she had moved back in with her parents. Her dad and brother, whom I had always got along with, moved her things out in a U-Haul. Her dad shook my hand, and her brother hugged me, saying they would miss me and were sorry that his sister had thrown away a great relationship. This was in 2021, and since then I haven't gone on a date. I focused on work. I received a promotion and love my team. I've hired many Detroit natives who don't usually get a chance, and it has worked out well. Graduates from Detroit Mercy are top-notch. If you read this entire story, thank you. If you have been cheated on, I am truly sorry. The world can be cold, but we are the warmth. Carry on and keep fighting. You have only lost when you give up. God bless you all. Story 4. Teenage Summer Camp. My longtime girlfriend attended a week-long camp where many of my friends were present. I couldn't go because of my job. During the week, my girlfriend was openly making out with another guy. When I picked her up on the last day, only one friend mentioned it to me. That hurt much more than the cheating. Story 5. My wife called to say she wouldn't be home because she drank too much and didn't want to drive, even though she's never been a drinker. She turned off her phone location and was evasive in my texts. She refused to let me come get her and didn't care that our kids were concerned. After an hour of texting, she stopped replying. In the morning, I received warnings about attempts to use a credit card to withdraw cash from an ATM, as none of my cards allow that. I rushed to the bank at opening time only to find that money had been drained from my account 10 minutes earlier, across town. Days later, I discovered evidence on her phone that she and her boyfriend had been discussing where they would live and where the kids would go to school. I could elaborate, but it's the typical scenario of not seeing it coming from this person. It's terrible that someone can hurt their spouse and children so badly, but it happens every day. Fortunately, if you work hard at it, life can be 1,000 times better years later without that person. Story 6. My friend and his wife have 2 children and are set to go on a Disney cruise. They have been planning it for months with his family. 2 weeks before the cruise, she receives a promotion at work and is set to travel for a work trip, so she will miss the cruise. Cruise day arrives and he flies himself and his 2 children, aged 4 and 2, to the cruise ship. They spend the night in a hotel before heading to the cruise ship. He boards the ship, and once it is about to depart, too late for him to get back off the boat, She sends him a text message stating that she wants a divorce, and that when he comes home, she will have all his belongings packed. He calls me and mentions that he has limited internet access and asks me to drive by his house. I go over there, but her vehicle is gone. I drive by some likely friends' houses, as they lived in a small town about 2 hours away from me, and I find her car parked in a man's driveway. I take some pictures and return a few days later. The car is still there in the middle of the night. He is stuck on this trip with his family and 2 young children on a Disney cruise while his wife is with another man. It doesn't end there. When he returned, she had called the sheriff and claimed she knew he was coming home and would harm her. So when he arrived, the sheriff had him drop off his children and told him he needed to find a different place to stay for a few nights because she had filed a domestic violence complaint, even though he was on the cruise. It took him a couple of years to sort everything out in the court system. Despite her actions, including being unfaithful and allowing their children to spend the night at different men's houses, the court granted them joint custody. It's unbelievable. Story 7. In high school chemistry class in the late 1980s, we conducted an experiment where we heated a strip of metal, which I believe was magnesium, in a crucible to turn it into its oxide. By measuring its mass before and after, we observed that it gained mass by combining with oxygen. This also allowed us to determine how thoroughly we converted the metal into its oxide, which we calculated and documented in our lab report. My lab partner and I forgot to record the mass before heating the metal strip. I realized this only while writing my lab report that night. We had recorded the mass afterward, though, so I calculated the number of moles of magnesium oxide we produced and worked out what the initial mass of the magnesium strip should have been. Thinking that being overly precise might seem suspicious, I adjusted the number so we showed an error of 7%. The next day, my lab partner entered the classroom and exclaimed, "We forgot a step." I replied, "I know. Just copy my lab report." The teacher called on students to share their numbers and calculated their margins of error. As high school students, they were all off by at least 20%. The teacher became frustrated and said, "This is unacceptable. Does anyone think they have reliable results?" My lab partner looked at me, and I raised my hand to share my numbers. The teacher did the math and then stated, "Only a 7% error. See, that is what a good margin of error should look like." We received an A. Story 8. I have had 2 significant relationships. My first girlfriend was unfaithful while we were dating, engaging with multiple partners without my knowledge. In a shocking turn of events, she invited one of them to a gathering we had one night. Sensing something was off, I became overly flirtatious and physical with her, which led to a confrontation where he threatened me. Unaware of our relationship, she also had an encounter with a friend who claimed to be gay, and when I confronted him, he suggested he would be interested in me as well. The most challenging experience was with my ex-fiancée, with whom I was together for 9 years. After we broke up, I took a trip back to my hometown to clear my mind, but returned home a day early. Upon my return, I discovered she had someone over, and her reaction was one of panic. I told her I would move out as soon as possible. During my final days there, she continued her relationship with him while I stayed in the guest room next to hers, culminating in her bringing him over again just before my move. Story 9. In Battleship, I moved my ship around the board every time my mom guessed the correct coordinates. At the end, she revealed her board, and it was a perfect grid where every other peg was marked. Story 10. I met a beautiful girl who was working at a Kmart. I thought I was pretty suave and flirted with her. I asked her out for that night and she agreed. I asked her where she lived, and she said she'd meet me at the mini-market. I picked her up, and we spent the evening attending various house parties. I only knew a few people at the parties. We were getting pretty drunk, and she would sit on my lap and kiss me. Some people were staring at us, but I figured they were either jealous or wondering why she was with me. I took her to my house and we were intimate for a while. It was getting late, and I took her home. She had told me she was divorced. When I drove into her neighborhood, she said she was separated, not divorced. As I pulled up close to her house, she said, "You better stop here. My husband is home." I said I thought she was separated, and she explained that they were going to be divorced, but they still lived together. I let her out of the car a few houses away from her home. I know alarm bells should have been going off, but I was a fairly inexperienced 18-year-old, feeling euphoric after my evening with her. I went home and went to sleep. The next day, a friend approached me and said he heard about me taking her around town. I smiled proudly and said, "Yeah, I had a great time." He looked at me and said, "Do you remember when someone shot holes in Jay's Mustang last week with a deer rifle? That was her husband. He's crazy, and so is she." I said, "She told me she was divorced." He looked at me with a grin and said he hoped her husband didn't find out where I lived or what car I drove. I spent the next few months wondering if someone was going to take a shot at me. Nothing ever happened, but I learned a lot about cheating from my experience. Story 11. My friend discovered that his wife cheated on him, which resulted in him contracting chlamydia. When he confronted her, she lied and claimed it was a mistake. The husband persuaded her to take the matter to court and file charges. She began to do so, but her story fell apart during the police investigation, leading her to admit she had lied and ultimately being charged with providing false information to the police. Story 12. My ex-wife and I had a pretty perfect relationship. We never really fought and worked as a team to better ourselves. After about 5 years together, she wanted kids out of the blue. We tried various methods, including hormone replacement therapy, vitamins, trackers, apps, and diets, but we just couldn't conceive. After her second round of hormone replacement therapy, we experienced back-to-back miscarriages. She withdrew and we slowly stopped being intimate. After 14 months of trying to figure out how to address something she didn't want to resolve, I discovered she was involved with someone else. 10 years wasted. So I got divorced and thought I could do better. A few bad relationships led me to therapy in 2020. After 2 years of therapy, I met someone and let her move in after 9 months of being exclusive. About 6 months later, she accidentally shared videos of her being intimate with someone else in my bed on social media. That was the end for me in terms of finding love. Story 13. I have only done it once. I was in my 20s. I felt so bad about it that I broke up with my girlfriend 2 days later. I learned a lesson from the immense guilt. Always break up with your partner first before allowing anything to go that far. It's not necessarily easy, but it's the right thing to do. I could never bring myself to cheat again. Story 14. A close friend of mine went through something absolutely brutal a while ago. He was in a relationship with a woman, and they had a 3-year-old son together. After their son was born, she was diagnosed with postpartum depression. She was on sick leave and stayed home all the time. My friend worked full-time and took care of their son whenever he wasn't at work. He did his best to hold everything together. One day, he found a memory card in their bathroom. Out of curiosity, he checked what was on it. What he found completely shattered him. It was filled with explicit photos and videos of her with other men. Full-on setups with lighting and multiple men involved. And it was all filmed in their bedroom, on their bed. The files were time-stamped. He went through a few and noticed one date that hit him especially hard. It was the day of their son's 3rd birthday. That day, she had told him she was too sick to attend the birthday party at his parents' place, so he took their son alone. Meanwhile, she stayed home, and apparently invited one or more of those men over to film a video in their shared bedroom. Needless to say, he was crushed. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the coldness, the lies, and the fact that she could do that on their child's birthday. Story 15. I was 20, my boyfriend was 21, and my best friend was 22. She disliked the man and constantly complained about how I could do better, saying she just didn't understand my situation. He got me pregnant. At the time, I was still quite religious and wanted to keep the baby. He and my best friend were the only ones I confided in. He was strongly against having the baby, while she said, "I'll support you no matter what you choose, but you should listen to him." I had an abortion which led to complications. I was bedbound for over a week, bleeding heavily and experiencing severe pain. I was also in turmoil, feeling as if Jesus hated me. During that entire time, I received no support from either of them. No calls, no visits, nothing. By the time I recovered, I noticed strange things on his social media. There were pictures of him in his home with captions she always used on her own photos. Her sister eventually informed me that they were together now. I went over and caught them in the act. The worst part? She was wearing my lingerie, which she had taken from my room, and it didn't even fit her properly. I exclaimed, "What is this?" She stood up, waved her finger in my face, and said, "Listen here." I punched her, and she crumpled to the floor crying. Then he pinned me against the wall until his roommates came in and separated us. I later found out she had told him I was cheating and that the baby wasn't his, which was not true. She even admitted this to me, saying, "You don't even deserve him." Apparently, her disdain for him throughout our relationship was just jealousy. "Melina, I have never forgotten what you did. You caused me a great deal of pain and heartbreak, leaving me with lasting damage." Story 16. I caught my ex texting someone saved in their phone as Pizza Hut. I thought they were just really into takeout, but it turns out they were really into someone else. Story 17. While dining at a restaurant, they held a lucky draw. All guests had to write their name on a piece of paper and put it in a bucket. The owner then chose me to pick the winners. Looking in the bucket, I saw my name on a ticket and picked it to win the main prize, a dinner for two. I still feel bad about it. I don't like cheating, but the food was great. Story 18. My ex-wife pretended to be admitted to a mental health facility for long-term treatment while actually staying with her new partner and being unfaithful to me. Story 19. Heard this from a date. She was dating a wealthy Chinese man. The girl had been busy with medical school or residency, and she had been with him for about 10 years. Their families and friends were all intertwined. She thought she would marry him. She appeared rather emotionless and expressionless. However, a week before her board exams, she wanted to visit him in Chicago. On the flight, she had Wi-Fi and a friend messaged her, saying she found photos of her boyfriend in another condominium, and there appeared to be another girl. It turned out that he was living with this other girl as if they were married, and whenever this girl visited, he would go to the other condominium. The wealthy Chinese man had 2 condominiums. She broke down on the plane. Nonetheless, she made it a point to pass her board exams. Story 20. I caught my old boyfriend on Craigslist with an ad for getting double dick down. Masculine for masculine with a femboy. I was very naive and madly in love at the time, so I accepted his excuse. I only get off on real pornography. He would leave periodically at very late hours to meet a longtime old gay friend who had a major crush on him. He would never fully admit it, but all the signs were there. He even threatened to break up weekly because he felt like everything was rushed. And I want to explore. I asked him point blank, "Do you just want to mess around?" His response was a simple, "Well, yeah." Story 21. My girlfriend at the time cheated on me and then broke up with me on my prom night. She also danced The Last Dance, which she claimed was one of our songs, with another guy. Story 22. The diligent, Christian, perfectionist girl was the top student in all her classes. One time, she was pressured by a group of popular students to let them copy her answers on a difficult test. On the day of the test, she quickly answered the multiple-choice questions. Reluctantly, she passed her exam to the class clown sitting right behind her. He proceeded to copy all her answers, returned the exam to her, and shared his answers with other students nearby. Within 20 to 25 minutes, everyone had copied her responses. Suddenly, 10 minutes before the end of the test, she began erasing all her answers and, while hiding her test with her arm, wrote in the correct answers, leaving everyone around her in disbelief. Story 23. We had just had a sexual encounter on a Friday night. I asked her what she was doing for the weekend, and she told me she was getting married. Story 24. When I was in college, I would sleep early and wake up around 4 a.m. to study for pretests. A guy would call me every morning at 4 a.m. to make sure I was awake. He would also pick me up and drop me off when I went out with friends, among other things he would do for me. I had never been treated this well by a guy before. I was head over heels. Then I found out I was the third party. Story 25. When I was younger, I played Contra on my Nintendo Entertainment System and used the code up, up, down, down, left, right, left, right, B, A. It gave me 30 extra lives. I couldn't complete the game any other way. Story 26. In 2013, I started dating a girl from a small town. She stayed over at my place, or I stayed at hers 3 to 4 nights a week. I came up with a reason to stay alone at my place and left. I went to a bar and ran into someone from high school. Things escalated, and I took her home and had an intimate encounter with her. The next morning, I dropped her off at her car, and she fell out of my truck and broke her ankle. 2 nights later, my girlfriend and I went to a friend's house party. That girl was there and knew my girlfriend through mutual friends. They started talking about her ankle, and I got caught in a bad situation in front of everyone. I am fully aware I was wrong and feel ashamed. I am now a faithful married man. Story 27. In high school, I twice walked in on my girlfriend in bed with her 2 years older brother, both naked and sweaty, with one of my condom wrappers in the bed with them. That may have been the worst experience of my life, definitely in the top 2 or 3. Story 28. Dad owned a construction company. He had a site superintendent who was married to one of his office secretaries. He brought him in to confront him about cheating on her and giving her herpes while she was pregnant. He told him he was fired. The superintendent asked, "For cheating?" My dad replied, "No, you're fired because we found out you were the one stealing lumber from your own site. I brought you in to tell you you're an asshole before the police pick you up." They were outside the office by then. Story 29. I bought a house with my girlfriend, which had been a dream of mine for over 10 years. She manipulated me when I had suspicions about a coworker, and not long after, she cheated on me and left for him, before we even moved into the house and 2 months before I was going to propose. It destroyed me. I had to list my house for sale before I even moved in. During this time, I had to stay in touch with her until the house sold. Occasionally, she would text me, apologizing or declaring her love for me. She even called me, crying, seeking comfort after her dog died. The coworker she left me for had cheated on his ex of 9 years to be with her. It seems he never truly left his ex and continued seeing her. He was reportedly emotionally abusive towards my ex, and they fought constantly. She found herself in dangerous situations, with the police being called several times, and he became a stalker. She had to get a job elsewhere to escape him. This strained her relationship with her parents significantly, as they were disappointed in her for making poor decisions. When the house sold, she owed me over $20,000. She asked for some Taylor Swift tickets that she had previously asked me to keep to make up for the cheating. When I did not return them, she refused to give me the money. I could have gone to court, but I chose to sell the tickets for nearly $20,000 and decided it was better to take the loss rather than have her in my life anymore. The last I heard of her was that she was sleeping with several different guys to restore her faith in men or something similar. So, she lost a house, her reputation, her job, and a man who wanted to build a life with her and loved her more than anything. Story 30. Diablo 1 was available online in the 1990s, where players could steal weapons from others during combat. I never cheated in school, nor did I cheat on my partners, although I was cheated on. Story 31. I was in a long-distance relationship at the time when I received a surprise message from her friend stating she was out with another boy. I also received photos and videos from her as evidence. I asked my partner what she was doing, and she replied, "Just helping my mom with baking." I immediately sent her all the evidence her friend provided, told her that we were done, and blocked her number. Story 32. Update. I asked my coworker out for dinner next week, and she excitedly said yes. I'm going on my first date since 2021. Her recommendations for restaurants in Detroit were interesting. I'm open to wherever she chooses. She's so smart and gorgeous. I have no idea why she's interested in me. Thanks for the inspiration, everyone. I'm accustomed to the mutual dislike on the basketball and football forums. Story 33. There was a man in a high-profile Magic the Gathering tournament who was caught sliding cards from his lap into his hand. He was discovered because he did this on camera in front of thousands of Twitch viewers. Story 34. We were 2 years into a relationship, and up until this point, she was madly in love with me, called me frequently each day, and always wanted to be with me. Around the time she was helping her sister plan the wedding, her calls became less frequent. When I called her, she usually wasn't available, and I assumed it was because of the wedding preparations. Our dates became less frequent as well, and I naively believed it was still due to the wedding. About 1 to 2 months later, I received an unexpected call from her sister during work. She told me she had something to share, and I instantly knew what it was about. "My sister's been cheating on you." She had been cheating with her soon-to-be married sister's fiancé's brother. They had been going out at night due to the circumstances surrounding the wedding. My ex found it fun and saw his presence as a sign from God, like something out of a movie or fairy tale. For weeks, she continued to lie to me about it, even though I already knew the truth. Eventually, her sister forced her to break up with me. Even during that conversation, she didn't have the decency to tell me she was with someone else. I feigned a smile and said I always knew we weren't going to end up together, and I let her go. After our official breakup, I still wanted her and tried to convince her to leave him and come back to me. She continued to either deny the relationship, deny that she cheated, or claim they had stopped talking. This period of time caused me immense grief, and I physically felt a sinking sensation in my body every day and night. It accumulated into intense pain in my abdomen that kept me from sleeping until I was too exhausted to stay awake. I begged her to stay or at least visit me over the Christmas holidays. She promised she would, but then told me last minute that she had to be with her family. I later found out she used that time to take a solo flight to see the other guy for the entire holiday. I was in and out of the hospital for the pain for a while. My mother, not knowing we had broken up, called her to inform her I was in the hospital. She was upset but never came to visit, not even once. When it was time for my surgery due to an infected gallbladder, guess who showed up? Not her. Not once. Her sister did, though. My ex and her new boyfriend lasted about a year. It turns out he was both physically and emotionally abusive to her. Neither of them was wise enough to save money, so they were both broke as well. Story 35. We attended a relative's funeral of a friend. Both of his girlfriends came to show support, and it was a significant occasion with hundreds of people present. The deceased was beloved in the community. He asked our friend group to keep his girlfriends away from him and from meeting each other. With so many people there, it wasn't too difficult to do. Story 36. Back in 10th grade, finals were just around the corner. We had a chemistry revision exam before the actual finals, and I had absolutely no clue what was going on. Honestly, none of us did. I just scribbled whatever came to mind. Midway through the exam, the classmate sitting behind me was literally crying and begging me to show him my paper. He kept whispering, asking me to move aside so he could copy from behind. I felt bad for him. He looked completely hopeless. And it's not like I had all the right answers either, but I still let him see my paper. I even told him, at least change the language a bit or jumble the words so it's not obvious. But no, he copied everything exactly as it was. The exam ended, and I was just relieved it was over. Fast forward to the day of the parent-teacher meeting. My dad came with me, and it felt like my chemistry teacher had been waiting for us. He placed 2 answer sheets side by side on the table and asked my father to flip through them page by page. One was mine, and the other belonged to the classmate who copied from me. Every single word was identical. Even the number of lines I left between the answers matched. If I made a mistake and scratched out a word, it was scratched out in his too. It literally looked like he photocopied my sheet. That's when my teacher looked at me and said, "If you're going to cheat, at least do it properly. Or at the very least, pass." I didn't. I scored 21 out of 80. The passing mark was 32. And to top it all off, when we got home, my dad overthought the whole thing and asked me if the guy was my boyfriend. That spiraled into a whole lecture. So yes, fun times. Story 37. I was dating a girl for several months, and everything felt great. Then one day, she showed up at my house with a hickey on her neck. I'm not naive. I know a hickey when I see one. So I asked her about it, and she explained that she had gotten out of bed and hit her neck on her bed. I paused for a moment and then asked where on her bed she hit her neck. I had been in her bedroom many times, slept in her bed, so I was familiar with it. She said it was the bedpost, but the bed has no posts, only a frame with a backboard. I clarified if she meant the backboard since her bed didn't have any posts. After a long pause, she corrected herself, saying that she meant the backboard. At this point, I had already assumed she cheated, and I was intrigued by her evasive answers. I pointed out that the backboard is flush against the wall and asked how she could have hit her neck on it. She started stuttering, insisting this was ridiculous, that she just hit her neck on something in the bedroom while getting up, and that I should drop it. Eventually, after a 10-minute back and forth, she confessed that she cheated on me with a guy she knows but swore that all they did was make out, and he gave her the hickey. I felt like this was the truth, but she had lied at first. When we had gotten together several months ago, I had only found out after dating for a couple of weeks that she was actually cheating on another guy with me. We were already intimate at that point, and I was left feeling like I was now in the same situation the previous guy was in. At this point, I was done. I wasn't as upset as I thought I would be, and figuring it out and getting the truth from her made me feel better. I said it was over and that she should go home. She tried to downplay it, suggesting we should stay together for a couple of months until summer was over and she went to college, after which we could break up. I was so caught off guard that I laughed. Her idea struck me as absurd, even if it meant continued intimacy, being in a bizarre casual relationship with someone who had cheated on me after several months of what I believed was a serious relationship. I should also mention that during the summer months, she intended to see other guys too. She went home, and I think I just started playing video games or watching a movie to keep my mind busy. We talked here and there as friends after that. I didn't hold a grudge about the situation. She was a fun friend to talk to and hang out with, but not someone I wanted to date again. I saw her several months later when she asked if I could come over to help her with some computer issues. I fixed her computer problems. It was just some compatibility issues with one of her games running on the newly installed Windows 7. We hung out for a bit longer and she suggested we could make out and maybe go further, but I was in a new relationship, so I left and went home. A year or so later, I discovered that the timeline lined up, and at the time she invited me over to fix her computer issues and offered intimacy, she was dating a coworker of mine. I did not know they knew each other. She didn't know he worked with me, and he didn't know I had dated her. He and I were talking about relationships one day at work and discovered we had dated the same girl. Discussing our experiences revealed that she was looking to cheat on him with me based on the timeline, but I never told him that, as I did not want to tarnish his memory of her or alter his perception of me. It has been over a decade now, and we have each other on social media. We haven't spoken in several years. I think we played a couple of matches of an online game together around its launch since we were friends on the platform. She seems fine from what I have seen over the years and has been in a couple of serious-looking relationships, so I am happy for her. I still hold no grudge, and I am happily married to someone I have been with for 11 years. I look back on this story as a humorous and strange experience. I once cheated on a final history exam I hadn't prepared for adequately. Diagonally to me were two friends, both very smart, and I could see their answers. The exam was all multiple choice, so I copied some answers from one friend and some from the other, added a few of my own, and then handed in the exam. I ended the year in that history class with a grade of 78 overall. Story 38. I was hitting it off with a cute, scrappy woman at a pub. She was very beautiful and mentioned her interest in roleplay. She was touchy-feely with me, and I just accepted it because why not? We were forehead to forehead, nose to nose. When she changed into a roleplay tone and started saying things like, "We should be careful of my fiancé," I replied, "Oh, this is so wrong." And she continued with, "He's a muscular Russian ex-Marine." I was laughing internally at how cliché it was but played along. She described him as 7 feet tall, with a big scar across his eye, and he has a black rabbit that he keeps by his side, making it sound like some supervillain story. I responded with ooze, but it's still too hard to resist you. Then he walked in. Yes, he was real. A massive, muscular, 7-foot tall man with short blonde hair, a scar across his face that went over his eye, and he brought his rabbit with him. It felt like a scene from a children's storybook. I'm not the type of person who condones cheating. I genuinely thought she was role-playing, especially with that mocking tone. Anyway, the story of that night gets progressively worse. I found myself in a red velvet room filled with chaos, surrounded by aggressive domestic violence, disturbing artwork made from melted items on the wall, bottles being smashed, and holes punched in walls. Oh boy, I love London. Story 39. I caught my ex cheating while I was helping her study for her finals and covering her rent because she had lost her job. I found out through a friend that she was taking study breaks with another guy. What stung the most wasn't even the cheating. It was realizing how many red flags I had ignored because I cared too much. Lesson learned. If you are doing more for someone than they would ever do for you, you are not in love. You are being used. Story 40. I'm not sure which of my two worst experiences is the worst. The first one is when my girlfriend cheated on me with her economics teacher in the first year of university, and I exposed them publicly. The second one is when I was cheated on by another girlfriend, who started dating a much younger guy after I ended the relationship. She later began dating my boss, and they had a child together. Story 41. There was a game you won by having the least amount of points. When I was 5, I told my friend he would win with the most points, and then he won because I explained the wrong rules. Story 42. More amusing than anything else in the end. An early girlfriend of mine cheated on me with a friend, then cheated on him with another friend, then another. We compared notes years later, and the only guy we all knew that she never hooked up with was gay. Story 43. I moved cities for a girl because she was going to university to pursue an undergraduate degree in dance. I changed jobs from graphic designer in television to computer sales in the new city. The thing was, I was really good at sales, making more than double what I earned in television. She cheated on me, stating, I was dating an artist, and now I'm dating a salesperson. Years later, I'm married to a beautiful woman. We have 2 laid-back and adorable kids, and I tell my wife the story. So we look her up. She has a unique name. She went from dancing to being a real estate agent, from artist to salesperson. I loved the irony. Story 44. As a fun 5th grade event for the last month of school, we had Greek Day. We were supposed to be little Greek capitalists in ancient Greece, making and selling togas, columns, and other goods. My friend John and I were the top math students, so we took on the role of bankers. We quickly turned into counterfeiters, and I think our teachers were really shocked. In retrospect, I believe it helped boost my popularity in late elementary school by giving me a bad boy image. That summer, I dated the most popular girl in the 5th grade, Maureen, who taught me how to French kiss until our mouths were sore. Story 45. I had a surprise English test, and after being told it wasn't important, just to ensure we had been listening, I decided to cheat. No harm, no foul. After copying from my notes the entire time, the teacher revealed what class we would be in for next year. I was placed in the top class and had no clue what was going on. Story 46. I have shared this before, but my husband moved his girlfriend and her children into our house while I was away staying with friends. That friend was also a lesbian. Story 47. On the iPad or laptops in school for tests, the screen would lock to the test. You could highlight the question, then press search on Google, and a mini Google window would pop up with the answer. I did this many times. Story 48. My high school sweetheart and I were together from age 16 to 25. We had what I believed was a healthy, loving relationship. That year, we planned a month-long vacation with her family. I paid for our tickets, but as the trip approached, I had to cancel due to work obligations. I encouraged her to go anyway. I didn't want her to miss out on the experience just because I couldn't make it. While she was away, I stayed home, took care of the house and our pets, paid the bills, and even sent her money when she ran out. She returned the day before my birthday so we could celebrate together, which we did. But the day after, she broke the news. While on the trip, she had cheated on me with her stepmother's nephew. She said she was very drunk, and things got too close. Completely blindsided me. I never expected this from her, not after nearly a decade together. After that, I packed up my things, landed my dream job, and left our hometown behind. Not long after, she entered a new relationship and now has a baby with a man who already has a child. The whole situation feels surreal, as if the life we built together was abruptly erased. Story 49. A guy I knew in the Air Force cheated on his wife and on physical training tests but complained when Tom Brady was accused of cheating because he said, "Cheating like that is wrong. If that's not the definition of irony, I don't know what is." I'm not even a Patriots fan. I'm a fan of the real greatest of all time who has 16 championships. Story 50. My stepbrother has a friend who has 7 children with 5 different women. It gets worse. Hang in there. He got his girlfriend pregnant, but he did not know it yet. He ended the relationship to be with the girl he was cheating with. The second girl finds out about the first when she tells him she is pregnant, leading to the end of their relationship. The first girl wants him back, but he does not return to her because of her appearance. Then he has a child with his next girlfriend, and they break up. He has another child with another girl, begins cheating on her, has a child with a side partner, and has one more child with his girlfriend before she discovers the other woman and baby. He reconciles with the first girl he got pregnant and has one more child with her, or at least that is the last I heard. Joseph drives a forklift in a warehouse and aspires to be a DJ one day. I have never seen him DJ. He just puts his phone to your ear and says, "I made this," and plays music suited for 8-bit games. You may not believe this, but this is the life of an actual person I have met and witnessed some of this happening. It's quite wild, right? Story 51. She told me that she cheated on me because she loved me too much. So, I got up and left without saying anything. Naturally, I blocked her from all social media. Months later, she reached out from a new email account and accused me of being the problem because, 1. I didn't say anything. I didn't fight for her or the relationship. I found it amusing. Story 52. After we got back together, we broke up due to my insecurities about her cheating. She and her sister went out to the club on her 21st birthday. I didn't go and was okay with it for a couple of reasons. 1. We had only been dating again for a couple of months. It was just her and her sister. My friends and I were going clubbing the next day. Before that, we went out to eat with her family. We had a good time, and I went home without thinking much about it. Randomly, around midnight, my heart sank, and I started to feel panicky. I had a deep, intense feeling that I was being cheated on. On a whim, I Googled how to check recent followers on Instagram and saw she had followed 3 men that night. My heart sank, and all my suspicions and insecurities felt confirmed. I decided to sleep it off and worked out in the morning to clear my mind. Ultimately, I texted her, expressing that I wanted to see her and asked her to come over. When she arrived, I bluntly said, "I don't have romantic feelings for you." She freaked out and we argued. I brought up the 3 guys she followed, and she called me insecure and weird for checking her follower count. I immediately regretted everything. Just like in our last relationship, my insecurities were getting in the way. When I started to apologize, she called me a piece of work, saying I wasn't a real man of God because I was accusing her, especially since she claimed to have been cheated on before. She left, and I texted her, apologizing and asking her to come back. A few hours later, she said she didn't want it to be over but needed the weekend. She went to her grandparents, which I knew beforehand. When she came over, my initial plan was to end things because it was clearly a toxic relationship. After enough yelling, where I remained silent, she broke down in tears, saying I never loved her since I wasn't fighting for her. Hearing that broke me and I fell back in. We eventually worked things out, but I still had an itch I couldn't scratch and I waited for confirmation. One night, I got into a bad accident and went to the hospital. We planned for her to stay with me for the weekend since I could barely move. We were laying on the couch talking and cuddling when she fell asleep. This was my opportunity. I had recently learned her phone passcode, so I went through her phone and checked her birthday messages. Sure enough, I found texts suggesting she had indeed cheated. She invited him out after we broke up, even reaching out less than 2 hours after reconciling with me. She was actively pursuing him while he was turning down her invitations, trying to talk and hang out for over a week after we got back together. At this point, I needed to see more. I searched my name in the bar and scrolled through the messages. I still don't understand why she ever wanted to talk to me again. One of the last texts I read during our first breakup mentioned something like, "I'm going to break his heart. I'm not mad about it, haha. But I feel a little bad though," while her friend said, "He wants to be with you so badly, but he doesn't even deserve to breathe the same air." This was after I had written her a letter apologizing for my insecurities and promising to better myself, expressing my desire to get back together. I was hit with almost every cheating stereotype there is. Story 53. A former roommate of mine, whom I thankfully recognized for who he was a serial cheat. We were good friends, and he wanted to pursue something romantic, but I pulled away because I sensed something was off about his excessive affection for women and the number of female friends he had. Both of us were in long-distance relationships, yet he seemed indifferent to this fact. Had he expressed, "I know we are with someone, but I really like you," it would have been a completely different story. I understand that things happen, but his nonchalance about cheating was shocking. It became clear that he had multiple affairs with various women while still in a long-term relationship. While we were living together, he claimed that cheating before marriage was acceptable, which appalled me because I liked him and hoped he wasn't as I suspected. However, my instincts were correct. I should have informed his long-distance girlfriend, but at that point, I was trying to emotionally detach myself and could not bear to get involved. He also insinuated that she was cheating, leading me to believe they deserved each other, but on reflection, it was probably just him. As soon as I left the apartment, he began sleeping with our other roommate and even an ex-girlfriend. Recently, he bragged about sleeping with multiple other women during that time. When he married, I asked if he had been faithful, and he responded affirmatively. I was appalled, but this poor woman had already moved across the world to be with him, and I just couldn't break her heart. I genuinely hoped he would be faithful now that he was married. However, he has traveled abroad frequently, and I cannot imagine he could go potentially 3 weeks at a time without being unfaithful, especially with the ease of online dating and his charm. I keep my distance from him. I'm happy he has children and a family because I knew he wanted that, but I believe he is one of those individuals who can compartmentalize to a great extent. He treats his wife and daughter like princesses, but I am certain he is also having affairs on the side. I carry a lot of guilt for not informing those women about his behavior, but it is challenging to intervene in others' relationships, especially when you live in a different country and it does not affect your life directly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.